Twitter at Marc Cox 97.1.
So he said that, they were walking in the middle of the street. He rolled his window down and, said, "Come on, guys, get out of the street." They refused to and were yelling back and saying, "We're almost where we're going." And there was some cussing involved. And then he just kept rolling up and he pulled over. And I believe at that point he called for backup, but I'm not sure. But I know he pulled up ahead of them and he was watching them. And then he gets the call in that there was a strong arm robbery and they give the description. And he's looking at them. They got something in their hands that looks like it could be what, those cigars or whatever. So he goes in reverse back to them, tries to get out of his car. They slam his door shut violently. I think he said Michael did. And then he opened his car again, tries to get out. And as he stands up, Michael just bum rushes him, just shoves him back into his car, punches him in the face. And then, of course, Darren grabs for his gun.
I'm going to pause that there. This is a phone call we got from an acquaintance of Darren Wilson in the days after this first happened. She didn't want to be identified. She referred to herself as Josie when she called us. And she was describing in Darren Wilson's words, because at this point, this thing's still under investigation, but the story had been twisted in ways that weren't the truth. And I think his friends wanted to make sure that the truth got out in all of this. I'm going to let you listen to another few seconds of it. I'm going to get the Chief Jackson back on the air here. Hang on.
Michael grabs the gun. At one point, he's got the gun totally turned against his hip, and Darren, shoves it away, and the gun goes off. Well, then Michael takes off with his friend. They get to be about 35 feet away, and Darren, of course, protocol is to pursue. So he stands up and yells, "Freeze!" Michael and his friend turn around, and Michael starts taunting him. "Oh, what are you going to do about it? You're not going to shoot me." And then he said all of a sudden he just started to bum rush him. He just started coming at him full speed. And so he just started shooting, and he just kept coming. So he really thinks he was on something because he just kept coming. It was unbelievable. And then.
So that is the version given to us by a friend of Officer Darren Wilson in the days after all of this happened. Chief, that pretty much flow with your understanding of what happened that day?
Yes, ultimately that was pretty much the way it went down.
Yeah. We, like I said, we disguised her identity because she didn't want people to actually know who she was, but she said she got that information straight from Officer Wilson. Let me get to a couple of phone calls here. Some folks have called in with some questions. Charles, welcome into the program. You're on with Marc Cox and Tom Jackson.
Thank you. That the tape and stuff you just played, that is just downright sick. That sounds like some 1930s Twilight Zone, Mississippi stuff. Naturally, Wilson is going to say some crap like that for his buddies to put out like that. I mean, I wouldn't even waste my time with that.
Charles, were you there? Did you witness what happened?
Did you?
So why are you calling in here telling me that's Twilight Zone stuff? Do you have a question for the chief or not?
I have some statements. I have a few statements for the chief.
What's your statement? You think that this was all made up? Don't you think that the Justice Department under Barack Obama and Eric Holder would have found that officer guilty if they possibly could have, but they investigated it and they couldn't?
The Justice Department under Barack Obama and what's his name? They're a bunch of I don't want to lose my religion describing them. I can tell you, Eric Holder, he was retiring. He didn't want to get bogged down. And we know Barack is the laziest person on the planet. He didn't want to get bogged down with it either. And but let's get back to what actually happened. Now, I've heard you guys say this before, and I agree with it. What happened in the store had absolutely nothing with what happened with the cop and Mike Brown. Follow me?
How can that be?
Because that cop did not mess with Brown them because of what happened in the store. What happened was he saw these two guys walking on the double yellow line. So he just assumed to himself these are two dumb, you know what.
Now, see, you
Actually,
can't. You
wait
can't.
a minute. Hold on, just hold on.
Don't rewrite history here, Charles.
Well, you don't get to rewrite it either. He didn't know a damn thing about no cigarette or whatever cigar. He said to himself he was going to get his girlfriend some cotton candy. He saw these two guys. So what he did was, when he came up on them, he verbally assaulted.
All right, so Charles, I'm going to put you back on hold there for a minute because I want to let the chief talk. I'm not sure he's going to get a word in edgewise here. He's alleging, obviously, that this was harassment on the part of the officer from the beginning just because the initial contact happened in the middle of the street when he asked them to get out of the way.
Yeah, and some people are just going to believe whatever they want to believe in the face of the facts, but it was an initial encounter where there was an ambulance that's going to be coming following Darren Wilson because he'd been on an ambulance call at the time. And, he said something like, hey, fellas, what's wrong with the sidewalk? And then somewhere in there realized that they may be connected to the bulletin that's going out about the strong-arm robbery. And that's when he recontacted them. That's just how it happened.
Initial contact, he backed off, and then upon hearing about the strong-armed robbery, went back a second time, which is when the interaction happened.
Right.
Yeah. And that pretty much follows with what the investigation by the Department of Justice found as well. Now, Charles, I'll put you back on the air here and give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Okay, that's not true. What happened was when he came up on him, he was walking on double yellow line, what everybody's saying. Now, you might not notice they had more rights. They had a right to walk on the double yellow line. The double yellow line is for not driving on it. You can walk on it. And if you see those sidewalks over there in Ferguson, you wouldn't even ask them what were they doing in the middle of the road. Anyway.
So, Charles, would any of that justify an individual reaching into a police car, and Darren Wilson had scratches on his face from the assault, and trying to disarm a police officer? They found Mike Brown's DNA on the weapon that was fired inside of the car. Oh,
please. Wait, I'm going to tell you what happened if you just give me a second.
Okay.
Just give me a second.
Get to the point. Get to the point.
Okay. Now, when he rode up on them and verbally assaulted them, he was intending to just drive on. He thought they was going to take it and forget it. But Mike told him to go F himself. He couldn't handle that. Oh, no, you ain't going to say it to me. He goes, what you say? He backed up. He backed up immediately because they thought he was gone until they heard the tires squealing. And he backed up and almost ran over their toe. Cut him off.
Charles, I have to ask, how do you know that's how that happened?
Common sense. Reading the reports and the witness.
All right.
He said he backed up.
He backed up after he got this call. I let Charles go on long enough. So he's, again, part of the problem we have here is that folks formed an opinion not based on facts, and they're not willing to give that up. I mean, it's not just Darren Wilson's word against his. It's not just Chief Jackson's word against his. It's the word of all of the FBI agents and the Department of Justice investigators and the grand jury and Bob McCullough, who all looked into this and didn't find facts that support what Charles is saying.
Right, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation found the same thing. And, if you actually did read the reports, you would see the detail that was in it, particularly analyzing witness reports, those which were credible and backed the forensic evidence, and those which were not credible, which did not back the forensic evidence. It's just people are just going to, I guess, form their opinions and try to create their own facts to fit that picture.
And that's what led to the riots, and that's what led to the fires again after the verdict, after the no charges decision was made. There's so much to talk about here. I think Mayor Knowles is going to join us here in this next segment. But part of the politics that played into this, you and I've talked about it. You addressed it in the book. You didn't get much support from Jefferson City in terms of the governor's office, for sure. It was brought in and taken out of the hands of Chief Belmar in the county, who is probably far more equipped to handle riot-type situations than somebody from the Highway Patrol, and yet that individual was put in charge. Now, I'm not running him down, but I'm trying to point out that there were a series of unfortunate decisions made in how this was handled.
Yeah, unfortunately, particularly in the political realm, in the state and the federal level, it was about optics. How does this look, and how can we make it look, and how can we make it look better, rather than how can we restore order and conduct an investigation, which is what we were trying to do.
Yeah. Good point. Chief Tom Jackson, my guest right now. Ferguson Mayor James Knowles is on his way down here. He's going to join us in the studio in just a couple of minutes, and we'll focus more on what's happened in Ferguson the past 3 years. Have they gotten the reform that the Justice Department demanded? What's been the real impact of this consent decree that was sort of forced down the throats of the city government there in Ferguson? It's all coming up on the Marc Cox Show. We'll get to more of your phone calls at 314-969-9797.
This is the Marc Cox Show. Air Comfort Service Heating and Cooling. Weather with Dave Murray.
It's another good-looking day of weather across St. Louis as the non-summer continues. This will be the 6th day in a row of below-average temperatures, 85 for the high. Tonight, partly cloudy, 64. Thursday, partly sunny. Can't rule out a couple of scattered or spotty showers around in the afternoon and evening on Thursday. The high again about 85. I'm Fox 2 meteorologist Dave Murray for FM News Talk 97.1.
The Marc Cox Show is sponsored in part by Granite Transformations. Let them transform your kitchen, bath, or commercial space. Explore the wide selection of products in their beautiful showroom in Chesterfield or online at granitetransformations.com. They have the perfect solution for your next project. Well, the update to what you just heard there is that Granite Transformations has opened a brand new warehouse, a brand new showroom. They've already had their warehouse, but their showroom down in Fenton. So right down in that business park there off of I-44 and Mraz, you get to it. You need to go down there and visit them because Chuck's going to be offering some special prices related to the grand reopening of the showroom since they moved it from Chesterfield to Fenton. It just made more sense. He had space right next to his warehouse. He's got a little more room for the showroom. They can put some of their new products out there for you to see. If any sort of fix-up of the kitchen or the bathroom, or maybe you're fixing up a man cave or a bar down in